Actually, before we begin the hearing, this is the first zoning board meeting since the March 31st reorganization where they appoint new people. And so with that, we need to formally vote for the chair, vice chair, and secretary. I move to appoint myself as chair, and Mr. Rother as vice chair, Mr. Conti as secretary. Second? Second. And all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
And any opposed? All right, so that's taken care of. And let me get my pen and we'll begin the hearing very shortly.
Thank you.
Are you ready? All right, very good.
Just to make an announcement, this is live. So everything's being recorded as well as transmitted live, so just watch what you say and we're gonna stop to see if anybody wants to attend virtually and let them in, so just to let you know.
All right. Today is May 16, 2024. It is 7 p.m., which is the time and place for the Mount Lebanon Zoning Hearing Board Appeal number 1861 for the property at 380 Avon Drive, AVON Drive, Pittsburgh 15228. The zoning board has been provided several materials already, including a cover sheet, a copy of the advertisement in the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette, the notice to property owners and interested parties, a zoning variance request presentation by Wesley and Nancy Smith at the same address as the property, a copy of a survey, which I don't see the date on the survey. Am I missing a date? Appears to be no date, but the survey was by Jack E. White, W-H-I-T-E. A large blueprint style printout of the proposed project by Robert T. Stevens Architects, and 4 color photographs taken by the municipality of the subject area. We also have an email in support of the appeal that was provided to us. So that is what we have in our possession. At this time, anybody who will be testifying before the board, please stand and be sworn in. All right, thank you very much. All right, so at this time, Mr. Smith, are you presenting or is it somebody's presenting on your behalf? All right, so you weren't actually sworn in, so you didn't stand up and raise your hand. So if you can do that real quick. All right, thank you. So this is your opportunity to present to the zoning hearing board.
I do since I got married. I'm Wesley Smith, and we're requesting a variance. You have the part of my Catholic voice. That's okay. So we're applying for variance to Mount Lebanon zoning ordinance 202.5.3.1.2.1, which states principal use of the structure, 2 side yards totaling 15 feet, but in no way shall the side yards be less than 5 feet. We are making this request in order to construct a 5'7" square by 35 tall residential elevator hoistway attached to the left or the east side of our home, located at 380 Avon Drive. You have a copy of the site plan, so see where that goes. The hoistway will house a hydraulic elevator mechanism and a 3 by 4 foot cab, permitting great nature. Permitting vertical travel from our basement to the 3rd floor, with entrances obviously on each level. The proposed shaftway location is 11 foot 10 inches from the east side of the house to the property line. The variance after construction will leave 6 foot 3 inch distance to the property line on the east side and the existing 5 foot 4.5 inches on the west side, for a total on both sides of 11 foot 7.5 inches. Thus, the total variance request is for 3 feet 4.5 inches of the 15 feet required minimum dimensions, leaving neither side of the yard less than 5 feet. Why the proposed location? After considering all alternative locations, specifically those that did not require a lot width variance, this is the only location for an elevator that will permit a full reach to the levels to all levels and the least amount of construction and cost. The rear of the house is blocked by an elevated deck that spans about 3/4 of the potential accessibility. The remaining quarter of the back of the house is even, if even possible, to be used as a hoistway location, would eliminate the rear garage doors at the basement level, would require narrowing and reconstruction of the double dining room windows and rear wall on the first floor. Loss of half of our custom built-in dining room wall cabinets, loss of my studio window on the second floor, which would be a hardship for me as an artist, and significant construction and cost to tie the hoistway into the gabled slate roof on the third floor. The right or west side of the house is 5 foot 4.5 inches to the property line, with ground elevation preventing elevator access to the basement. This hoistway location would also completely block off the west side access to the backyard. And of course, the front of the house was not even a consideration. Thus, the only remaining location is the east side of the house. So I'm going to address the potential hardship to our neighbors to the east. The minimal size, shape, and appearance and location of the hoistway on the east side as proposed will be unobtrusive and will be aesthetically in keeping with our house and the rest of the homes of our neighbors. The hoistway will include side-facing windows on each floor to match our existing windows and will create the appearance that the hoistway was part of the original structure. Our closest neighbor to the east will not realize any impairment or loss or lose appropriate use of their property as a result of the proposed elevator hoistway, and it will not extend close enough to their property line to affect them in any way. They also have their driveway abuts their home, thus permanently separating their property from ours, and as such prevents any structural addition on the west side of their home. Thus, no egress, functional, or aesthetic hardship will be realized by our neighbors, who are happy that we will not have to move, and so attested but in the letter that you have. Potential hardship to the owners if we don't do this. My wife Nancy just turned 83, and in July I will turn 85. To date, we have lived in our home for 40 years. Nancy's contribution to the township has been significant. She is an accredited master gardener and volunteers to head up other volunteer gardeners who design the township's library gardens. Perhaps you've noticed them. She has done this for 26 years. Nancy spent 15 years on the library's Friends Board, served various leadership positions. She served 10 years on Mount Lebanon Parks Board and served a term as board president. She served another 10 years at the township's Nature Conservancy, including a term on as board treasurer. Finally, the township recognized her many contributions with this town could not have done it without her award. Our own home gardens on Avon Drive have been on the Mount Lebanon and Allegheny Botanical Garden tours 3 times. I am a retired university professor of art and Westinghouse manager of video productions, as well as an active fine artist and photographer. I sell my art through my online website. I have my art studio on the 2nd floor, and I also enjoy working in my basement workshop. We have kept the house well maintained, put in new energy efficient windows, full home air conditioning, installing stair railings and bathroom grab bars. We upgraded the electrical service, added a deck across the rear, and are having the exterior painted top and bottom as soon as we can figure out what color. Our neighbor and township attachment remains strong. Our immediate area is age diverse, and we know most of our neighbors, their kids, and even their dogs' names. Nancy is a 2-time cancer survivor, and we both had joint replacements. Thus, we have to anticipate there will be near future mobility issues and thus the need for an elevator. Our roots are here. We love this community. We've given back and we want to stay where we are. We've chosen to live independently, improve our home's accessibility, and enhance our safety as we age in place. If our home did not accommodate our current and future physical needs, moving would unfortunately be our only choice and thus a significant hardship for both of us. Little supporting data. Recent AARP housing survey found that over 70% of seniors would prefer to stay in their homes for the rest of their lives, but that find it very difficult, if not impossible, as older homes are designed to accommodate the needs of, were not designed to accommodate the needs of people over 65. Our home is 96 years old. Alternatively, we've looked at apartment and condo living, which has proven to be too small for our needs, and most do not permit pets. Our pets, dog, poodle, Petra, is her name, would be heartbroken if we had to give her away. We looked at a number of new single-floor homes, but these are quite expensive and would require a mortgage, which we have not had for many years. Further, we have not, they are covenant restrictive, have limited property for gardening, and have been clear-cut for construction purposes. Frankly, we're not prepared to wait 20 years for a tree to grow. We even looked at retirement homes and residences, but no, it's too many old people. The Center for Disease Control and Prevention has done extensive research that finds selected home modifications and repairs can significantly improve safety and mobility and prevent as much as 30 to 50% of all falls and accidents experienced by seniors, with stairs being a major risk factor. Should the time come when a wheelchair for either of us may be required, an elevator would provide the only way to access all levels of living spaces in our home. Some seniors adapt their homes so that they can live on the first floor only, but there's no bathroom on our first floor and no place to install one. So single floor living is not an option for us. In conclusion, we recognize as a 3'4" to 4.5" variance, while small still requires the zoning board's approval. We've done our homework, we've explored other living arrangements and found none to be as accommodating as where we are, with a few safety and accessibility modifications. Having to move from our home would indeed become a hardship. The east side of our house is the only possible location for a small footprint, but highly functional and beneficial elevator wishway. An elevator will turn our 4 floors into one living level. Therefore, we ask that you grant our zoning variance request.
Thank you. Mr. Author, do you have questions?
Yes, I do. So per the zoning ordinance, there are 5 criteria that you must meet in order for us to grant a variance. Are you aware of those?
Yes, I
5
read
criteria?
the, Ronnie sent me a copy of this, and I read it, and I thought I addressed each of those.
Okay. Well, we'll run through each one kind of individually and talk about each one.
Okay.
So the first,
I could just say, by the way, I brought Stevens with me. He's the architect, so if there's any structural questions, he can answer those.
sure. Okay, the first criteria states that there are unique physical circumstances or conditions, including irregularity, narrowness, or shallowness of the lot size or shape, or exceptional topographical or other physical conditions peculiar to the particular property, and that the unnecessary hardship is due to such conditions and not the circumstances or conditions generally created by the provisions of the zoning ordinance in the neighborhood or district in which the property is located. Would you be
Is that
able
a
to?
question?
Well, that's the first condition that you would have to meet. So would you?
Yeah.
Kind of explain how you feel that you meet that condition?
Yeah, I thought I explained why the elevator would have to go there and not any place else on the house. So we're kind of limited to geographic geographically to that location.
Okay, so, but it would have to be kind of unique to your lot. So like, would there, if you could explain kind of if there's any narrowness or kind of how your lot is shaped, or if there's any topography, is it steep, is it flat?
No, there's a sharp, I'm guessing at about 6 feet that goes from our house, the side of our house, down to our neighbor's driveway.
Okay, and I believe you said on the, would be, I believe, the west side, the opposite side of the house that you're not putting the elevator on.
It's not even large enough to accommodate the elevator to the property line, and it would block off access to the backyard completely.
Okay, your lot, you're in an R1 single family residential district for zoning.
Correct.
Per the ordinance, the minimum lot width is 60 feet.
It is in the front, it's 55 in the back. And the
Right.
house is sitting a little cattywampus on that property.
So yeah, so your lot is not perfectly square. So kind of looking at, I think the back of your lot being 55 feet is less than the minimum 60 required.
Yeah.
Also, the minimum square footage, per the ordinance is 8,000 square feet. If you just kind of do some simple math and average your front and back, and then average your side depths, you come up to, a little over 12,500 square feet. So you do meet the requirement for minimum area, but you do have a lot that is a little bit shallower or more narrow than what was required.
Yes.
Was
Was the ordinance in place 96 years ago?
if I have to guess, probably not. Or this one, no. The second criteria states that because of such physical circumstances or conditions, there is no possibility that the property can be developed in strict conformity with the provisions of the zoning ordinance, and that the authorization of a variance is therefore necessary to enable reasonable use of the property. You'd be able to kind of expand on that one, on how you feel. You meet that?
Yeah, we looked at all of the possible other locations, alternative locations. And it was obviously we ruled out the front of the house. We couldn't do it on the west side because there wasn't enough space to the property line. And on the back of the house, there's a deck that goes about 3/4 of the way across the back. And the space between the edge of the deck and the east side of the house could accommodate it, but we'd have to take out, as I said, the garage doors, we'd have to reconstruct the dining room windows, we would lose the, to get into the dining rooms that way, we would lose the built-in cabinets. And then, of course, we'd lose my window in my studio. And then the whole thing would have to be tied in to the roof, the slate roof, gable roof on the top, which would take quite a bit of construction to do that.
Okay, thank you for that. The third criteria, that such unnecessary hardship has not been created by the appellant.
I don't think we've created any hardship. We have a letter from my neighbor. I don't know if you want to read that, but they don't have any problem with it at all. And I have other neighbors here that might see it.
The fourth criteria, that the variance, if authorized, will not alter the essential character of the neighborhood and or district in which the property is located, nor substantially or permanently impair the appropriate use or development of the adjacent property, nor be detrimental to the public welfare.
Mr. Stevens, our architect, has provided a drawing of the side of the house to show you what it would look like, including windows, fake windows, if you will, the real windows, but we're not going to be able to use them with an elevator in there. But it will create the appearance that the structure has always been there.
And what will be the siding material or type of the?
Undecided at this point, because we want to make sure we've got a variance before we go ahead with the next level of drawings to do the construction drawings and the details. At this point, we just indicate siding.
And the last or the fifth criteria is that the variance, if authorized, will represent the minimum variance that will afford relief and will represent the least modification possible of the regulation and issue.
The elevator hoistway, that's as small as they can make it because there's a, there's a contractor that will develop the actual structure, but then the elevator company comes in with a pre-built, you could think of it as a big forklift. It lifts the cab up and down through there, and that is kind of already a built-in size, and it can't be changed. We can't make the structure smaller to accommodate the thing. It's as small as it can be. And it also is not across the whole side of the house. It's only this wide and this deep.
All right, thank you.
Okay.
No further questions at this time.
All right, thank you. Mr. Conti, do you have questions?
Just one, can you tell us what distinguishes your lot from your neighbor's lots on that part of Avon, other than Nancy's gorgeous garden?
Oh, you know that. What distinguishes it?
What makes it different?
What makes the whole lot different or
Yeah.
just that location?
What makes your situation, your lot situation different than this neighbor, and so on? Or anybody on a sloping street in Mission Hills?
Yeah, sure, we're about living and everything is on a hill. Again, we can't put it on the west side because there's not enough room.
No, but I'm sorry, but is there some characteristic of your lot that is different from the other lots around you, the other R1 zoned lots?
I don't know what difference that might be.
Okay,
I don't know how to answer that. I don't know what the difference is. That side of the house is the only place we can get from the basement to the.
I understand that, yeah. Okay. No.
Mr. Roth, any other questions?
No questions.
All right. If you'll take a seat, we're going to be speaking with.
Okay.
Yeah, just stay right here. Mr. Sarver, can you present the position of the municipality, please?
The municipality's position is, Mr. Smith, contacted us and, asked us about his proposed elevator shaft, encroaching into the side yard requirement. And before we can issue a permit, obviously, if it's in violation of the zoning ordinance setbacks, I advised them that they have the right to appeal to the zoning hearing board, in which they did. After some conversation with him, it was realized that basically to access all floors, and the way that the existing house is configured, that was basically the only viable location. And that's when he applied for the variance, for that, minimum 5-foot setback, or a minimum of a total 15-yard setback. So as advised on the application and in his report, he's roughly, a little bit over 4 foot, or basically 8 inches shy, of meeting that 5-foot minimum, for the total 15-foot.
Sorry. 8 inches shy of the 5-foot minimum.
Yeah, so
on the
he's-
one side or of the 15-foot total?
Well, for the 15-foot total, he's at, with the proposed shaft, he would be at 11 foot 7 1/8 inch. So he would be roughly about, 3 foot, or so shy of the total 15-foot side yard. And then he's proposing a side yard outside the shaft on that side of the house, which would be the southeast side of the house. He's proposing a side yard of 6.3 feet from the side of the elevator shaft. So he's meeting the minimum 5 foot, he's just not meeting the total 15 foot.
Understand. Thank you. Mr. Rother, do you have questions for Mr. Sharper?
No, I think you clarified what I was going to ask.
Mr. Conklin?
No.
I have a question, Mr. Sharper. Are you aware, is there anything associated with such as the Americans with Disability Act that allows things like this to override local zoning codes or regulations, or is there nothing of that sort?
So under the statewide building code, there are accessibility provisions.
Mhm.
We don't enforce the ADA, we enforce the accessibility standards put forth by the statewide building code, the Uniform Construction Code. And under the statewide code, there are no provisions for accessibility for single-family detached homes. So there are no requirements to meet that. The only thing that they do state for ramps is the steepest a ramp can be is one inch of rise and 8 inches of run. So that's the steepest a ramp could be to comply with the code. But other than that, that's the only thing that regulates as far as accessibility for a detached single-family home.
Thank you. All right, so at this time, I am going to read into the record the email that we received, and then we will open it up for public comment. We received an email on Sunday, May 12th from Jeff Strine, Strine. Dear Zoning Hearing Board, unfortunately, we are unable to attend this week's meeting in person regarding appeal number 1860 for 380 Avon Drive. But we wanted to offer our unequivocal support for the appellant Wesley Smith in his request for a side yard variance. We have lived next to the Smith family for the last 10 years at 384 Avon Drive. And while we are the home most directly impacted by this variance, we have no objection and would ask the board to make this reasonable accommodation to allow them to continue living in the neighborhood they have called home for decades. Please reach out directly if you have further questions, and it's signed Jeff and Carrie Strine. So at this time, if you would like to give testimony, please come forward, state your name and your address.
Hi, I'm Bob Pacina. I live at 400 Avon Drive, and I've been at that address for about 20 years. Came from Chicago. Mount Lebanon, is a great place. The houses are great, but better than that, the neighbors are great. I mean, we moved in and our yard was kind of old and tired, and we were on the library garden tour, and a lot of, thanks to Nancy. There was a question, I just want to comment, I don't have anything prepared, but what's the building material going to be? Well, hell, Wes is an artist and Nancy is a master landscaper, and they got a beautiful house, and it's in a beautiful neighborhood, and 3 feet, give me a break. My mom had an elevator. I came from Chicago. I moved my parents up here. My dad's 95. He lives in our basement. I'll go on record. If my neighbor needs to have a variance for this, my goodness, it should be like a rubber stamp when something like this happens. 40 years they've been in their house. I'd hate to see them leave over something like this. I can't say enough about that. It really improved my mom's life to have an elevator. And, we should do everything in our power as a community to keep people like this in the community. I'm retired. I travel in a van. I go to a lot of different places. And when I come back here, there's nothing like here. And I appreciate, the value of, zoning and having these type of things. But this is a slight accommodation that would be vastly improve their lives, and they vastly improve this community. That's all I have to say.
Thank you. Thank you. Next person.
Hello, my name is Matt Smith. No relation to the appellant here. We've been neighbors
Sorry,
for,
what's your address?
what's it?
Your address.
389 Avon Drive,
you.
across the street from the
Mhm.
house. I've been there for 32 years, Mount Lebanon for about 38. In fact, the first people I met in the neighborhood were these two. And I have to say I wholeheartedly support this proposal that they want to do. It's a sort of a life issue really, of maintaining a kind of home that they want to keep and be able to stay there as long as they possibly can. And frankly, we don't want to go around trying to train some new neighbors coming into the area. So, but they've been very, very good, open with all of us about what they'd like to do. Ask about any questions and so forth. And I think, as I say, it's a real quality of life issue here. And I think that's a real overriding thing. Plus the fact that, as you know, zoning ordinances are imperfect documents, just like the Constitution. That's why it's got all the amendments. And that's why we have zoning variances. And I think in this case, it's warranted. Thank you.
Thank you.
You did.
Yeah, so my name's Matt Husak. I'm here with my wife Ginny. Husak. We live at 370 Avon Drive. We're directly to the west of the Smiths. We've been in the neighborhood 24 years. If it were me, I would actually be here requesting the same exception. The Smiths are great neighbors. As they've indicated, they've been here 40 years. We don't want them to leave. We think it's fair for you to grant them this exception. And I would just lastly just affirm everything that Mr. Wes Smith had indicated as far as there being really no other location for the elevator. I'm very familiar, obviously, we all are with the property. So I can just basically affirm, pretty much everything except, the details of the measurements as far as where I would need to put the elevator if it was myself. So thank you.
Thank you.
Natalie Kukla at 385 Avon. I'm a neighbor for 21 years now. I'm here with my husband Sebastian. We're across the street on an angle from Wes and Nancy's home. So from our front porch, we will be seeing this new addition or structure. And we wholeheartedly support them doing this. Wes's artistic skill and Nancy's gardening skill, this will give them a project to make a small Taj Mahal on the side of the house, just as they have done with all of their stonework, their gardening, creative things that Wes has done inside of the house. So I do not see that this will just be a cube tacked onto the side of a historic home in Mount Lebanon. And then I would also like to speak a little bit as a licensed realtor for Howard Hanna for the last 21 years. And a couple of the items that you have mentioned, that their lot is 60 feet at the front and 55 at the back, is actually fairly typical. And where their lot is, it feeds into a teardrop sort of valley behind their house. So their backyard completely slopes away and all of those lots narrow, which would mean there's probably 12 houses that are not 60 at the front and 60 at the back because of where the back of the Jefferson Loop meets up with the back of that Avon Loop. And something to note about the interior of the house, and if there was is this the only place to put this? Their staircase on the first floor goes up and it jogs. It's an L shape. Whereas the staircase to the second floor is a little farther down the hall and in another spot. And the staircase to the basement is off the kitchen. And so many old houses, the staircase is always flat against the wall. All 3 floors are stacked. And you might have a little bit of wiggle room. They actually have stairs in multiple places in the house. So I just thought I would point that out as far as their floor plan. And if there was a difference from their house was one of your questions to other houses in the neighborhood. I would say one difference is their garage dips straight down from the street. Everyone either has the high side of the street or the low side of the street, but many of them garages and driveways loop around behind the house. Their driveway goes straight down. And so that level of their house is a little lower than the neighbors on either side, or in fact, anybody here and up and down are our street does not have quite that same topography from the front of their house to the back of their yard. And in the back of their home, I don't know that it's structural, so maybe you could move it, but they have, instead of a typical window well, a concrete window well that extends almost 5 feet behind their house. And that structurally runs most of the back side of their house. So where most people may just on the back say, could we just add the elevator shaft and get rid of our patio? They have a space that is kind of foundational to the back of their structure. So those are just a couple of things that that your questions made me think of that I haven't measured and looked at specifically, but being familiar with the house. And then would also just point out that 426 Avon, same side of the street as the Smiths, but farther down on the dead end, has a similar sort of bump out for a first floor powder room. And the DeCoste family that lived there for over 50 years, they did that probably 30 some years ago. And that 9 by 4 foot structure definitely encroaches towards Tony and Mary Lou Price to the west side of that house. So it isn't unheard of, and I don't know how old that addition is, but Tika and Jim DeCoste had lived at 426 for 40 years at least. So I don't know what the zoning was at that time, but it's not unheard of for our neighborhood. So we would really, we would like more than anything to keep them on our street. So, thank you.
All right, thank you. Anyone else? Anyone online? Thank you. Mr. Sharper, one question I meant to have asked is whether the commission has offered any opinion on this.
They have not.
All right, thank you. Mr. Rother, do you have any other questions for anyone?
No questions.
Mr. Conti, you have more questions? Do you have any else that you want to add, or are you?
Bob Stevens is here if you have any questions regarding structure. So.
All right.
Good.
So we will now adjourn to executive session and we will be back shortly. We'll get our study. Yeah. Back on the record for appeal number 1861, and we are prepared to vote. Mr. Conti, how do you vote?
I vote to grant the variance.
Mr. Rother, how do you vote?
I vote to approve.
I also vote to approve. So thank you very much. And with that, we are closed. So we will sign the proper paperwork and pass it to Mr. Sharver. I think the municipality has 30 days to object if they choose to. So like, but you'll hear from
We'll
him.
notify you and then, if you prepare the plans or whatever, basically, there's a 30-day appeal process. So unfortunately, I can't issue a permit until 30 days go by. So.
In case some other neighbor, so.
Correct. So. All right.
Do you have the thing to
Yeah.
sign? Thank you.
Thank you.
All right.
So
I
do
didn't
now.
realize she never changed this form, so
Okay.
I just initialed and put your name here.
All right.
Do we have anything next month? 2. Wow. The school district.
Yeah.
For what? Scoreboard for football, like the high school?
Yeah.
Oh, wow. Oh, man.
LED scoreboard.
Man, they're gonna have the solicitor for the district here.
And I think what the other one is, oh, it's a side yard for a couple decks. Yeah, basically a couple decks.
We will likely do the decks first.
It's the first case anyhow, so.
Okay, good. Is this our one? Yes, it's our one. Thank you.
you.
See you next month.
Good. You don't need any copies or anything? No problem.
I thought about interrupting him when he was reading this stuff in, but I'm like, you know what? You have the right to read whatever you want, even if it's something we already have. You can pass that down. You know, so let him go.